All right. Um, I'm going to start some personalization today. I've got my pictures printed. If you can print them, that's great. If you can't, it's really handy to have your device next to you as you work. And here's my blank head. It's really good to check one more time those dimensions after you've done any tweaking from our critiques or from our talks. I've also gone through and I've really done a lot of smoothing, and I do my smoothing via rib. So I like to use the metal rib that came in your kit, and I'll show you what I did just as like a last minute, really looking at symmetry, really looking at different parts of the head. But it's helpful to do some smoothing at this point to do that. And I take this rib and I will just smooth a little bit. Doesn't need to be perfect, but it does help me see some of the dimensions and really check that I've that I've done a good job to make things symmetrical and even, or as best as I can, I do think my face is a little wide, especially compared to the neck, and some other things that I think I'll adjust when I personalize. But at this point, I'm pretty confident that I'm ready to start doing some personalizations to the sculpture. And that means adding features and that kind of stuff. So in order to do that, we need to map out the head first. So it's kind of crazy, but after I've done all that smoothing, I'm going to come back and I'm going to use my skewers one last time. Not one last time, I lie. I use these suckers all the time. So I put the skewer in here. Skewer in there from the bottom. I take my measurement again. Just it's right at 7 1/4. So I want to make sure I do half of 7 1/4. Half of 7 1/4 is 3/8. It's so essentially I'm going to do that 0.5 times 7.25 equals 6.625. So 3.625. So that means right at 3 and right there. Nice. It's at 3 1/2 plus a 1/8. It's right there. That's my midpoint. What goes at the midpoint? Let's see, the middle of the eyes, right? Okay, I'm also going to do a midline down the center. So I've got my halfway mark right here. My width measurement, can't remember what it is. This is so much easier when you write this stuff down. Nah. Yeah, it's right at 5, so 2.5 is my center point. And I'm gonna just take this and mark it straight down. Much in the same way I did with the eyes. Okay, now I need to take my, I should have done this before I moved it, but I'm going to take my overall height and divide that into 3s. So it is 7.25 divided by 3 equals 2 and 2.4, so it was a little less than 2.5. So every 2.5 inches I'm going to mark my thirds. It's helpful to have a starting point. So I'm going to use this as my base. Do you see how I'm doing that? I use this as my base. And I take it, and I said 1, 2, and a little less than a half. Let me make sure I'm in the right. Yeah, that was not the right. So, is that what I said? Let me double check. Yeah. Just a little bit less than 2.5. So if I come up here at 2.5, I'm going to make a mark here. Okay. Just going to carry that mark across. And from this line, I'm going to come up another 2.5. So I'm just going to use this as my measurement now. I'll come back and check it. So from here up, I'm coming here at 2 and a little bit less than a half. So that's right here. Make my last line. And then I'm going to measure to the top one more time from that line and make sure it's the last 2.5 inches. It's pretty perfect. Okay. So the eyes will go here, the brow line will go here, the nose line will go here. So there's some important measurements that we use on the thirds. If you remember proportions. Okay, it's my guide. The first feature we do is eyes. So it's kind of, I find it very tempting, and I always demonstrate like this. I demonstrate one eye at a time, but it's really kind of difficult to actually sculpt one eye at a time. It is a much better to it is much better to sculpt the eyes at the same time, and so I'm going to try to do it that way this time. What I'm going to do to start is I'm going to put my thumbs on either side here, and I'm going to start to indent right like in the center of this, equidistance from the center point. Right, you see that kind of looks weird, but I want to indent in there. That's where I want my eye sockets to be. So you can indent with your finger if you prefer, making sure that eye socket is in the center. But you can also use your loop tool and remove some clay. Right, to make yourself an eye socket. The thing about the eye socket is that it comes all the way to the side of the face, right? And the trick is that then you have to build back up over here once you build an eye socket like that. Just fine. We're gonna do it just fine. So there it is, me doing it with my thumb. I'm trying to keep the eyeball in the center of the line. Center of the line is the center of the eye. Now, the tricky part is I want to look at this from the side, and I want to make sure I have like an indentation here. That eye socket comes back, and then the eye cheekbone will come out. So you have two processes on the top. You have one on the top here and one on the bottom. You really got to get this so that you have an area Remember, this is the brow line, this third up at the top. So you almost want to create like a recess down from the brow line. Like, it's okay to make your socket almost hit that brow line, and that's what I prefer to do to make sure I get the structure correct. Right? I'm gonna rebuild it all. It seems crazy big. I get it. And it is kind of crazy big. And you're not going to build your eyes that big. But what you need to do and notice is that when you're talking about the side of the eye, you're talking about something that's going to come back like this into the head. So your eye sits back into here, right? From here to here, and you need brow above it. Right? So this needs to even like come in like this. The socket is kind of important, so spend some time making sure that they're level and that they look the same. And you know, you're gonna put two balls in here, so you want them to be the same depth and the same shape so that they sit similarly. And again, I'm gonna like tweak in here between them. Can you see that? Okay, I put a little like dip. You dip, we dip, I dip right there. Now my eyeball isn't gonna be up here, it's gonna be right here. But I'm gonna use this socket area to sculpt back. And then this is important, that there's an angle here. So I take my thumb and I push out in the socket and I push up and down so that you have a side here and a side here. This is the cheek process. It's this portion right here. Okay? If your socket is totally round, you miss this and it just looks like it sits in there. So I push this back and forward while I'm making my socket. Okay, I'm gonna start over. Okay, I've got my mid mark. I've got my third half, right? And I am ready to go. I want to start by making the eye crevice, and I'm gonna do that by using my loop tool, and I'm gonna be real aggressive about it this time. I like to take the center of the eye will be in the eye socket, so I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna scoop out like that, and then I'm gonna scoop out like that, nice and dip. Dip it, dip it, dip it. I go almost to the side of the head. Look how far that is. What? Crazy talk, Miss West. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I go in. Deepy, deepy, deepy to the side of the head. And then deepy, 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 deepy. Boop. Big old eye sockets. What have I done? Even going to squish that. You're like, I know, I think those of you who have done this before, you do this with Mr. Cawthorn and he doesn't take the eye socket all the way to the side of the head. This is the way I do it. I do it because we don't ever get this angle correct on this cheekbone unless we do that. So it's aggressive. Sometimes it's kind of fun to just gouge the eyes out, right? And put my thumbs in there and Now this is the brow line, so the eyeball is going to be down here, right? But the brow is going to be all the way up into here. So what happens in the side of the face is there's a cheek structure that will rebuild after some time. So that was a huge eye socket gouging. Take a minute, do that. Notice from the side how much I've actually removed. Again, I have my marks on the side that keep it centered. I haven't put a little divot there between. That's where the bridge of the nose will be. So I almost pull that in like that. I'll push it in like that. Do that. Do that now. Get this really weird big eye sockets that look like, Miss West, why did you ruin the sculpture? But I didn't, I promise. Can you do that? And give yourself a slope. Slope up there. Your eyes sit in, their balls in a socket. They don't sit on the surface of your face. If you make them too big, they sit too far out, and I already did that once. I'm not gonna do it again. Living with you. Okay, so you got that? Creepy, creepy, creepy. About at the middle of the head. Double check. Middle of the head. Do. Making my line. I'm keeping my line there. It's all the way there. Okay. Make 2 balls the same size. Try to work both eyes at the same time to keep them even. 1 step at a time on one eye, 1 step on the other eye. You have a better chance of symmetry this way, I think. I mean, that's my plan. I normally do them one and then the other, and it never works out quite right. So I'm gonna try to do this one's a little big. Just roll 2 balls, trying to make them the perfect size and perfectly round, which isn't easy. Micro adjustments in my hands, and then right. That one needs to be fixed still. I want it to be round and nice, without any creases and stuff. It's hard to, once you get the ball shape in there, you don't want to touch it again. That's the thing. Like, you want to keep that bally. Right? And I'm going to use this as like a measurement to keep them equidistant apart. So how do you know how far apart they should be? You kind of use one eye to go like that, and then between them. So you want an equal eyes distance between each eye. You want to make sure that the center is on the center of the line, and that's pretty much what we have. And you want to make sure that they don't, I mean, they stick out, but they don't stick out so far. Right? You don't want bug eyes. You want them to sit in that socket. As in such, as in so forth. You're doing great. I can just tell. Eyes are not easy. I'm going to take a little clay. I'm going to backfill the side just right here. Just a teeny bit, like not much, okay? Just a teeny bit. I'm not filling this whole thing, I'm just backfilling the side. Trying to keep the eyeball round. Over here again too, I'm going to backfill the side. It's like a ligament or a muscle or something right there. I like my rubber tools. Those are my favorite ones for eyeballs. You may like different ones. Okay. Now I'm gonna create. I'm gonna create the lid. And that means the first lid, like this one, the one that the ladies put the makeup on. There's two lids usually. There's this one, and then there's the fat that comes over the top. Whether or not it's a crease, like mine's a crease, whether or not you have that crease or you just have a single lid, there's still this one and then this fat that comes up over it. So we kind of create it in two different sections. And you know, and that's that. So what I do is I take a little bit of clay. Right here. This is this table is stone, and it's not shiny stone, so nothing really sticks to it, which is nice. But if you don't have this, you want to do this on your on the wood board. Mine's just dirty and I don't want to clean it off. You might have to clean off your wood board to make this happen. So I've rolled a coil, and now I'm going to flatten that coil, and I want this coil to be flattened to about a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to flip it, and I'm just using my tool to flatten it. And I got no fancy rolling pin. Okay, like that. I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. It's just a little bit of water, not very much. I'm just smoothing it so that it's not cracked. Then I like to take from my tools the metal rib, and I use this to cut this in half. Okay? And then that edge right there is really nice and sharp. Can you see that? That's amazing. Where is it? There. It's nice and sharp. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to cut that. I need 4 of them, so I cut 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm happy. Wank, come back up here. Now, what am I going to do with these? I am using them to make the bottom and the top lips. I use the lids. I use a nice sharp edge, and I wrap it around my sculpture. Put my glasses back on, I can't see. So this is when you do this both of them at the same time, because you want to get them to cover the same amount of the eye and look about the same. So like I'm gonna get the bottom one in, and I'm not touching that edge. I don't touch that edge, but I want them to be approximately the same like curvature. Approximately the best I can. Right? And this one is off. This is when it helps to look at your model and notice their eye shape. Now, my eye shape is kind of almond shaped, so that's what I'm going to go for, is an almond shaped eye. I'll put that lid over the top like that. Kind of give myself that almond shape. And I'm going to put this one over this eye. And I'm going to try to make sure that the same amount of eye is exposed. I broke it. I fixed it. Okay, something like that. Clean my tools off. And I'm gonna, I like, again, rubber tools are my jam. So I will use them to smooth this in. I never am I not trying to touch the edge right here where I've created that like nice sharp line. I try not to touch that, although I just touched it. Try to booger that in. Boop, boop. Smooth that and like that. All right, why don't you give that a chance? We'll kind of stop here for day one on eyes, and then we're going to come back and do the structure around and down. The eyeball. All right, I'm going to open this up even further. Oops. I'm just smoothing a little bit more around that eye. Any like little tweak I make changes the shape of the eye. I can change the lid shape without actually touching the corner of the lid. Okay. Take your time. Okay. Eyeballs day 1.